So, if you've ever got off your sports bike and found yourself wishing for something that could offer you sports bike thrills and handling, but with a little more comfort and accessibility, then the new Ducati SuperSport could be what you're looking for. Ducati calls it its versatile sports bike, and the SuperSport is intended to be the machine that bridges the gap between sports riding and genuine daily usability and comfort. It comes in two flavours. The standard SuperSport is £11,495 and the S model is £12,795 if you want it in red, and an additional £200 if you want it in white. Now, both bikes share the same 937cc liquid-cooled Testastretta L-twin engine. It makes 113 horsepower and 71.3 pounds-foot, and it's the same lump that you'll find in Hyper Motard and the new Multistrada 950, but with changes including new crankcases, generator cover, and cylinder head, because in this bike it acts as chassis member. Both models also have the same 8-stage traction control, 3-stage ABS, and 3 riding modes, which are sport, touring, and urban. Differences between the standard bike and the S are simple enough. The S gets fully adjustable Öhlins suspension front and rear, and it comes with Ducati's DQS quick shifter for clutchless up and down changes, plus it's got a pillion seat cowl as standard. On the SuperSport S, tapping up through the gears is a really slick experience with the quick shifter, as is going down the box, and it works really well. Although can sometimes require a firm left boot, it is precise and it adds so much to the riding experience, especially on track. The motor delivers brilliant mid-range, it's really useful and accessible on the road, but it also has a final flourish of top-end excitement as the rev counter gets closer to 10,000 RPM. So keep the engine spinning above $5,000 and you can't go far wrong. Being lazy with the engine under about 3,000 RPM can elicit a bit of a gentle chugging reminder that this is a twin cylinder bike, but other than that, the motor is smooth and tractable with impeccable fueling and a faultless response from the ride-by-wire throttle in all 3 riding modes. And Ducati's refined electronics package makes it all easily accessible on track and provides a welcome safety net for when conditions are less than perfect on the road. So out on track with the S in touring mode, on wet tyres and the traction whacked up to level 8, the highest setting, I could see the light going mad every time I went near the throttle, but the traction control works with subtlety and smoothness, so I can never feel it unduly cutting in and holding the engine back. Switching to sport mode delivers the same 413 horsepower you get in touring mode, but with a bit less traction control as standard and a sharpened throttle response, and the result is that the bike feels more frisky and sharp. It's really easy to flick between all the modes and customise traction and ABS settings using the simple controls on the left switchgear. The suspension is similarly accomplished, and the fully adjustable Öhlins kit on the SuperSport S delivers the plush, refined feeling I've come to expect from bikes with the gold bouncy bits, and the suspension did a superb job of communicating how much grip was available on track. But don't go thinking that the standard bike loses out in any way, because it doesn't. The standard SuperSport has fully adjustable suspension in the form of Marzocchi fork and Sachs monoshock, and it gave me a really nicely damped and comfortable ride with performance that struck a great balance between comfort and poise. Maybe I'd firm it up a bit for a fast and dry road ride, but other than that, it was excellent. When it comes to corners, the SuperSport handles beautifully because it gets into bends with agility, deftness and lightness. So on track, when hammering into a corner hard on the brakes and changing down, the S was always stable, balanced and eager to turn, and both bikes have an excellent connection to the road. Obviously, the SuperSport lacks the kind of outright aggression of a more focused bike like a Panigale, but on road and track it manages to deliver this kind of magic blend of composure, comfort and sporting agility, and it really is superb on the road. Ducati has got the handling and ride feel spot on, so that it delivers fully across the gamut of riding it's aiming at. Some of the handling plaudits have to go to the excellent Pirelli Rosso 3 rubber, which is grippy, stable and reliable come rain or shine. They certainly always offer good grip whenever the pair of Brembo M432 4-piston monoblocks and 320mm discs got called into action. Like the tyres, the brakes performed perfectly come rain or shine with excellent feel through the non-adjustable front lever, the first squeeze of which doesn't yield the kind of bite you'll get from a more track-focused bike, but the amount of power and the progressive way in which it feeds in is perfectly suited to this bike's road bias. And speaking of the Supersport's road bias, I said at the start that Ducati calls the Supersport its versatile sports bike, but it also refers to it as a sports bike for the road, and to that end, the Panigale resemblance is strong. I don't know about you, but I reckon it's a handsome bike with the kind of purposeful Panigale-derived front end, complete with LED daytime running light and adjustable screen. The way it uses a sort of softened take on the Panigale's front end means it looks precisely like what it is, a sports bike for the road. And getting back to the screen, it's got 50mm of adjustment and 2 settings, high and low. Changing between the two requires pushing it down or pulling it up, which requires 2 hands. Wind protection is okay, but because the screen is a bit narrow in places, the wind blast can find a way around it, but I didn't find it that much of a problem. The Supersport's tail unit has a bit less in common with the Panigale derived front end, and the large single-piece rider and pillion seat gives the rear of the bike a sort of gentle shape, and it's one of the main visual reminders that the Supersport isn't a full-fat sports bike. Sit on it and you'll find the sitting position is less aggressive and a little more spacious than what you get on a Panigale, and I found myself sitting in the Supersport rather than perching on top of it. During an afternoon out on the road, it was comfortable and has a bit more give in it compared to your typical sports bike seat, and at 810mm high, it should be manageable for a lot of people. The other reminder that the Supersport offers more comfort and versatility than your average sports bike comes from the high set bar position. The bars sit quite high above the top yoke and still require a bit of a stretch to get to, but fall naturally to hand. And if anything, I may be expecting them to be a bit higher than they are, but the result is a riding position that's definitely on the sporty side of the space inhabited by this bike, which is somewhere between sports tourer and sports bike. I'm not saying I could close my eyes and pretend I was riding a 1299 Panigale, but by no means does the Supersport feel neutered by the way it delivers a softened sports bike experience. The amount of legroom and the position of the pegs also have echoes of sports bike ergonomics that have been slightly dialed down, so think lower and a bit further forward than the sports bikes, and you've got some idea of what the peg position is. Criticisms of the Supersport are that I found the mirrors could be quite vibey. Mine seemed prone to a bit of movement, especially at low speed, and I noticed that when stopped during the road ride after about maybe 50 kilometers, I noticed that the tank on my bike had started to become marked and scuffed. It was unlacquered and it really needs a tank protector as standard. But apart from those 2 small issues, that's it. The Ducati SuperSport is a fantastic bike on the road and a load of fun on circuit. If you bought one of these and primarily ride on the road, do the odd track day each year, it could be all the bike you need because it really delivers on the everyday sports bike remit. Ducati sports bike DNA is fully present and ready to deliver an engaging ride experience in a package that doesn't demand as much from you as a full-fat track bike. It's just the right thing for anyone who wants to add a dose of comfort to their sporty riding without relinquishing the fun or feeling like they're riding something that's been heavily diluted.